Okay, so today we're going to start looking at the biogeochemical cycles that happen in nature. So I brought you outside for this video to my own yard so we could talk about this, because what this is going to teach you guys about is really how the components of the earth, the chemicals in the earth, really affect living organisms and how we rely on the chemicals of the earth to survive. So a formal definition would be elements, compounds, and other forms of matter are passed from one organism to another and from one part of the biosphere to another. And this really connects biological, geological, and chemical aspects of the earth. In this video, I'm gonna take you through 4 different cycles: the water cycle, the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, and the phosphorus cycle. This is just going to be a brief intro to those cycles because you're going to be looking at a more in-depth video that describes how these cycles work in the earth, and then you are also going to be doing your own project on this, and a big component of the project is you doing some self-study on this to learn how these systems work. So the water cycle really just talks about how water cycles through the earth from the clouds that comes down in forms of precipitation onto the earth, and then it runs off into the ocean, where then ocean, lakes, and rivers, and then there's evaporation that occurs and it goes back up into the clouds. And so it's this constant cycling of the water. Water's not created or destroyed, it's just we've got what we've got. The next biogeochemical cycle we're going to talk about is the carbon cycle. Carbon is very important. It is, and there's really 4 main ways that carbon cycles through our earth. There's biological processes such as photosynthesis, cellular respiration, and decomposition that move carbon. If you think way back to our photosynthesis and cellular respiration unit, carbon was a big part of those equations that we talked about. Burial and decomposition of dead organisms is another way that carbon gets released into the soil. So when a dead organism is in the ground, such as just something that dies naturally, or leaves falling to the ground, or matter, as it decomposes, the carbon that was in that organism goes into the ground, and under pressure of the earth, as the layers of earth pile up on it, that pressure pushes that carbon and it becomes turns it into fossil fuels. There's also geochemical processes that occur, so processes that occur in the earth, such as erosion and volcanic activity, and both of those release carbon dioxide. Volcanic activity is an explosion which releases carbon dioxide. Erosion exposes carbon. Sorry, there's a car driving by. Carbon in the soil that then gets released into the air. And then lastly, human activities such as mining, cutting down trees, burning forests, burning fossil fuels also release carbon into the atmosphere. With the nitrogen cycle, the atmosphere is the main reservoir that stores the nitrogen, but nitrogen does also cycle through soil and through tissues of living organisms. We have bacteria in the soil that helps with a process called nitrogen fixation, that helps converts the nitrogen into usable forms for living organisms, and then upon them going into the organisms, they continue that cycle through the earth. You'll be hearing a lot more about nitrogen fixation and the nitrogen cycle in the next video, but I just wanted to give you a quick intro so you're familiar with how that works. The last cycle I want to introduce you to is the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus in biosphere cycles among the land, ocean sediments, and living organisms. We learned a lot about phosphates when we talked about the phospholipid bilayer and how it helps forms nuclear membrane and cellular membrane. And again, you'll get more of an introduction to this cycle and all the cycles coming up here in the next couple of lessons and in the project you're doing. But that's just a quick introduction to the biogeochemical cycles.